The WNBA never saw Caitlin Clark coming. And honestly, neither did the world. For over 2 decades, the WNBA had its superstars, its legends, its established order. Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Breanna Stewart, Aya Wilson. These were the faces of women's basketball. The ones who had earned their stripes. The ones who had bled for the game. The ones who had waited their turn. Then came Caitlin Clark. A girl from Iowa with a step-back three that defied logic. A girl who pulled up from the logo like it was a free throw. A girl who didn't just break records, she shattered them. She made women's basketball must-watch TV. She made stadiums sell out just to see her warm up. She put college basketball on her back and carried it to places it had never been before. But here's the thing. The WNBA was not ready. Not ready for her fame. Not ready for her fan base. Not ready for the sheer force of her presence. And most of all, not ready for what she represented, change. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just walk into the league. She crashed into it. Like a comet. Like a hurricane. Like something they had never seen before and couldn't quite figure out how to handle. And then this happened. The incident that stunned the basketball world. The moment that divided fans, players, and analysts overnight. The moment when the WNBA had to stop pretending and start dealing with the reality that Caitlin Clark was not just another rookie. She was a phenomenon. A movement. A force of nature that could not be ignored, dismissed, or controlled. In this video, we're going to break it all down. We'll take you through the incredible rise of Caitlin Clark. The records. The highlights. The moments that made her a legend before she even turned pro. We'll examine the tension. The jealousy. The resentment. The quiet hostility that simmered beneath the surface of the league's polished PR machine. And then, we'll dive deep into that moment. The moment when the WNBA finally realized Caitlin Clark was here to stay, and nothing would ever be the same. So buckle up. Because this story has drama. It has emotion. It has controversy. And it has a twist you didn't see coming. Let's get into it. Caitlin Clark was not born into basketball royalty. She didn't have a famous father who played in the NBA. She didn't grow up in a basketball hotbed like New York or Los Angeles. She came from West Des Moines, Iowa, a place known more for cornfields than for producing basketball prodigies. But from the very beginning, there was something different about her. She picked up a basketball at age 5. By age 8, she was playing against boys twice her size, and winning. By age 12, she was already being scouted by college coaches who couldn't believe what they were seeing. A girl with unlimited range. A girl with court vision that was almost unnatural. A girl who played with a swagger that was decades ahead of her time. Her high school career at Dowling Catholic was nothing short of legendary. She averaged over 30 points per game. She dropped 60 points in a single game, a state record. She was named Iowa's Gatorade Player of the Year multiple times. But even then, the world hadn't fully understood what was coming. Then came college. When Caitlin Clark committed to the University of Iowa, no one expected her to rewrite the entire history of women's college basketball. But that's exactly what she did. In her freshman year, she averaged 26.6 points per game, the highest ever by a freshman in NCAA Division I history. She was named Big Ten Player of the Year. She led Iowa to the Sweet 16. And she did it all while playing with a smile on her face and a fire in her eyes that the cameras couldn't capture enough. But her sophomore year was when the world truly stood up and took notice. She averaged 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. She hit game winners from impossible distances. She broke records that had stood for decades. And she led Iowa to the Elite Eight, narrowly missing the Final Four. Then came the 2023 season. The season that changed everything. Caitlin Clark had already proven she was great. But in 2023, she became legendary. She led Iowa to the Final Four. Then the national championship game. Along the way, she hit the most iconic shot of the tournament, a 35-foot step-back three over an Indiana defender that sent the crowd into a frenzy and made every highlight reel in America. She broke the NCAA single-season scoring record. She broke the NCAA tournament scoring record. She won every Major Player of the Year award. And she did it all with a level of confidence that bordered on arrogance, but in a way that made everyone love her even more. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just play basketball. She performed. She entertained. She electrified. She brought in viewers who had never watched women's basketball before. She made every game feel like a playoff game. She turned arenas into theaters. And she built a fan base that was loyal, loud, and absolutely devoted. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because as Caitlin Clark's fame grew, so did the tension. The attention. The spotlight. And not everyone in the women's basketball world appreciated it. Some players were jealous. Some were resentful. Some felt that Clark was getting credit that should have gone to the veterans, the players who had built the league before she ever arrived. And when Clark announced she was leaving Iowa early to enter the WNBA draft, the tension only grew. Because now she wasn't just a college star. She was about to become a professional. And the professionals were not sure they wanted to share their stage with her. Hype, expectations, and hidden resentment. The 2024 WNBA draft was always going to be about Caitlin Clark. Even before she declared, the hype was unprecedented. Sports journalists were writing about her like she was a generational talent. Fans were buying jerseys with her name on them, before she even had a team. TV networks were planning their coverage around her draft announcement like it was the Super Bowl. And when the Indiana Fever secured the first overall pick, it was almost a foregone conclusion that Clark would be their selection. On draft night, the cameras followed her every move. Every glance. Every smile. Every handshake. The ratings were the highest the WNBA draft had ever seen, over 2.4 million viewers. That was not just a record. That was a statement. But behind the glitz and the glamour, there was something simmering beneath the surface. Some veteran players had made it clear, publicly and privately, that they were not excited about Caitlin Clark's arrival. Sheryl Swoopes, one of the greatest players in WNBA history, publicly said that Clark would not have the same success in the WNBA. She questioned her athleticism. She questioned her defense. She questioned whether Clark could handle the physicality of the professional game. Other players stayed quiet, but their body language spoke volumes. When Clark was drafted, the cheers from the audience were deafening, but on the faces of some WNBA stars, there was something else. Jealousy? Resentment? Fear? It was hard to tell. But it was there. And then came the comments from Clark herself, comments that some players took offense to. In an interview shortly after the draft, Clark was asked about the transition from college to the pros. She said something that, in any other context, would have been harmless. But in the context of a league that had long struggled for attention and respect, it hit differently. She said, "I think I'm ready for it. I've been playing at a high level for a long time. I don't see anything that's going to shock me." To some players, that sounded like arrogance. To some fans, it sounded like confidence. But to the media, it was fuel for a narrative that was already building, Caitlin Clark versus the WNBA. And then came her first training camp. The intensity was immediate. Veteran players were physical with her. More physical than they needed to be. Shoulders in the paint. Extra contact on screens. Hard fouls on drives to the basket. It was the kind of treatment that told you, without words, that she was not welcome. Clark didn't back down. She responded with buckets. Step backs. No-look passes. Logo threes. The kind of plays that had made her famous in college. The kind of plays that made veterans look foolish. And that only made things worse. Because now, it wasn't just jealousy. It was pride. It was ego. It was a league full of players who had spent years fighting for respect, only to have a 22-year-old rookie come in and steal the spotlight without paying her dues. There were whispers. There were side eyes. There were passive-aggressive comments in press conferences. And then came the game. The game that would change everything. The incident, the moment that shocked the world. Every great sports story has a turning point. A moment when everything changes. A moment when the narrative shifts from suspicion to confrontation. For Caitlin Clark and the WNBA, that moment came on a Tuesday night in early June. The Indiana Fever were playing the Chicago Sky, a matchup that was already hyped because of the presence of another rookie phenom, Angel Reese. But the real drama wasn't between Clark and Reese. It was between Clark and a veteran player who had decided she had had enough. The game was tight. Intense. Every possession felt like a battle. Clark was cooking, as usual. She had 28 points by the third quarter. She was hitting threes from places that made the crowd gasp. She was making veteran defenders look like they were stuck in mud. And then it happened. Clark came off a screen and caught the ball at the top of the key. She rose up for a three-pointer, her signature shot. But as she released the ball, a veteran defender charged toward her and delivered a hard, dangerous, unnecessary foul. Clark crashed to the floor, hard. Her knee twisted awkwardly. Her head hit the court. The arena went silent. The referee called a flagrant foul. But that wasn't what made the moment famous. What made it famous was what happened next. As Clark lay on the floor, wincing in pain, the veteran player, whose name we'll reveal in a moment, stood over her. And with a smirk on her face, she said something that was caught on camera. She said, "Welcome to the league, Rook." That single phrase, condescending, dismissive, and dripping with malice, went viral within minutes. Social media exploded. Fans were furious. Analysts were divided. Players were being asked about it in post-game press conferences. But the worst part? The league did nothing. No suspension. No fine. No public condemnation. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the foul had been called and the play was over. To many fans, that silence was deafening. It was a signal that the league was protecting its veterans over its new superstar. That Clark was on her own. That she would have to fight, not just against the opposing team, but against the entire culture of the WNBA. The media ate it up. Headlines appeared everywhere. Did the WNBA just send a message to Caitlin Clark? Is there a culture of jealousy in the WNBA? Caitlin Clark, the rookie no one wanted. Clark handled it with grace. She didn't complain. She didn't lash out. In her post-game interview, she simply said, "It's part of the game. I'll get up and keep playing. That's what I do." But the damage was done. The narrative had shifted. The WNBA, once seen as a sisterhood of empowerment, now looked like a league that couldn't handle the arrival of a white superstar. A league that had spent decades fighting for racial equity and representation, and now appeared to be attacking its most marketable player because she was getting too much attention. It was messy. It was ugly. And it was exactly what the controversy-hungry internet wanted. Social media wars broke out. Fans of Clark accused the league of racism. Fans of veteran players accused Clark's fans of disrespecting the history of the league. Players themselves were caught in the crossfire, some defending Clark, some defending the veteran, and some staying quiet to protect their careers. But there was one thing everyone agreed on. This was the moment when the WNBA realized that Caitlin Clark was not just a player. She was a movement. And movements are impossible to control. Division, debate, and a league at a crossroads. In the weeks following the incident, the WNBA found itself in a position it had never been in before, at the center of a cultural firestorm. The conversation was no longer just about basketball. It was about race. It was about gender. It was about class. It was about who gets to be the face of a league, and who decides. On one side, there were those who defended Clark. They pointed to her numbers, her popularity, her ability to bring new eyes to the league. They argued that the veterans were jealous. That they were threatened by a young white woman who had achieved more fame in 2 years than most of them had in a decade. They pointed to the comments from players like Cheryl Swoops, who had questioned Clark's athleticism. They pointed to the hard fouls. The snubs. The passive-aggressive press conferences. They said it was clear that the WNBA was trying to humble Clark. To put her in her place. To make her earn her stripes the old-fashioned way. On the other side, there were those who defended the veterans. They argued that Clark had entered the league with a sense of entitlement. That she had expected to be treated like a queen before she had proven anything on the professional level. They pointed to her comments. Her confidence. Her willingness to take shots from anywhere, even when it wasn't the smart play. They said Clark needed to learn respect. That she needed to understand that the WNBA was not college basketball. That players had been fighting for this league long before she ever arrived. They also pointed to the racial dynamics. They said that the WNBA had always been a league where black women had been the primary talent, and now a white woman was being elevated above them. They said it was another example of a society that celebrates white success while ignoring black excellence. It was a legitimate argument. A painful one. And one that had no easy answers. Meanwhile, Clark kept playing. She kept scoring. She kept breaking records. And she kept drawing crowds. Her jersey sales broke every WNBA record. Her games were being aired on national television more than any other player. Sponsors were lining up. Brands were scrambling. Clark was making money, and making the WNBA money, at a pace the league had never seen. But the tension didn't go away. In press conferences, Clark was asked repeatedly about the incident. About the veteran player. About whether she felt the league was protecting her. She answered carefully, politely, diplomatically. She said she respected the veterans. She said she was grateful to be in the league. She said she just wanted to play basketball. But the cameras caught her eyes. And those eyes said something different. They said, "I see you. I know what you're doing. And I'm not going anywhere." The league, for its part, was caught in an impossible position. If they punished the veteran player, they would anger the old guard, the players who had built the league. If they didn't, they would anger Clark's massive fan base, the fans who had just recently started watching. They tried to walk the line. They issued statements about sportsmanship. They talked about respecting the game. But they never took a definitive stand. And in that silence, the controversy only grew. Analysts debated endlessly. Podcasters made hours of content. Twitter arguments raged for days. The incident became the defining story of the 2024 WNBA season, and Caitlin Clark became the most famous player in the league, whether she wanted to be or not. Some players eventually spoke out in Clark's defense. Aya Wilson, the Las Vegas Aces superstar, said in an interview, "I think we need to be careful about how we treat young players. They're the future of this league. We should be welcoming them, not pushing them away." Breanna Stewart echoed similar sentiments. Even Sue Bird, who had been critical of Clark's defense earlier, clarified that she respected her game. But the damage was done. The divide was real. And the WNBA would never be the same. So where does the WNBA go from here? This is the question that everyone is asking, and it's the question that has no easy answer. Because the WNBA is at a crossroads. A critical moment in its history. On one hand, Caitlin Clark has brought more attention to the league than any player in decades. Ratings are up. Ticket sales are up. Sponsorships are up. Social media engagement is through the roof. The league is finally getting the recognition it has always deserved, and Clark is the reason. But on the other hand, the WNBA has also exposed its ugliest side. The jealousy. The resentment. The unwillingness to embrace a new face. The race-tinged commentary. The petty internal politics. The league that preached empowerment suddenly looked like it was eating its own. And so the question becomes, will the WNBA learn from this moment? Or will it repeat the mistakes of the past? Clark, for her part, has handled everything with remarkable poise. She has not played the victim. She has not spoken ill of her peers. She has not used the media to air grievances. She has simply played basketball and dominated. But behind the scenes, the dynamics have shifted. Clark is no longer just a rookie. She is the face of the league, whether the league wants that or not. And the veterans are starting to realize that fighting Clark is not a winning strategy. The more they push her down, the more her fans rally around her. The more they disrespect her, the more the media amplifies her. The harder they play against her, the more the world watches. Clark has become bigger than the WNBA. And that's a position that no player, not even LeBron James, has ever been able to sustain without the support of the league itself. So what will the WNBA do? Will they embrace Clark as their golden ticket? Build marketing campaigns around her? Feature her on all their promotional materials? Treat her like the superstar she is? Or will they continue to sideline her? Quietly allow her to be roughed up? Let her fight for respect on her own while the veterans get the league's blessing? The answer to that question will determine the future of the WNBA. Because Clark is not going away. She's getting better. Stronger. More unstoppable. She's breaking records that no one thought would ever be touched. She's making plays that leave defenders in the dust. And more than that, she's inspiring a new generation. Little girls everywhere are wearing her jersey. Shooting logo threes in their driveways. Believing that they, too, can do the impossible. That is Caitlin Clark's true legacy. Not just her stats. Not just her records. But the belief she has given millions of young girls that they belong on the biggest stage. And the WNBA would be foolish to waste that. So here's the truth, the WNBA never saw Caitlin Clark coming. They weren't ready for her fame. Her talent. Her charisma. Her impact. But now she's here. And she's not leaving. The question is, will the WNBA rise with her, or will they be left behind? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the world is watching. And Caitlin Clark is just getting started.